I grew up in a decaying Midwestern town that time had long forgotten. Once a bustling industrial hub, it was now a wasteland of abandoned factories, crumbling houses, and a sprawling water park that had once been one of the largest in the country. In its heyday, the water park attracted thousands, its massive wave pool a spectacle in itself. But like everything else, the park had died with the town, left to rot as the people packed up and left. The water park wasn't just a relic of better days. It was the center of the town's darkest legend. Not the entire park, though. No, it was the pool. The pool at its heart, with its rusted wave-generating pistons and cold, dead heating coils at the bottom, was the source of every whispered tale. It sat there, eerily still, as if waiting. No one dared to go near it after dark. Everyone knew the rules. Step into the water park during daylight, and you'd be fine. But stay past sunset? They'd find your body floating in that cursed pool by dawn. The story most often whispered was that of Icarus Quijano Thaddeus, a town detective from a couple of decades ago. Icarus had been determined to prove the legend wrong. Armed with cameras, his service revolver, and a friend stationed with binoculars far from the park, he entered the grounds one night, confident that he could outwit whatever haunted that pool. But come morning, his lifeless body was discovered face up in the water, his revolver still clutched in his hand. His cameras were gone, and his friend had seen nothing due to a thick fog that rolled in just after sunset. It was Icarus's fate that kept the legend alive in our crumbling town. Even though I never met him, I respected his bravery. Every few months, I'd visit his grave, leaving a flower, or just standing there in silence. He'd tried to conquer something that was beyond human understanding, and that made him the last remnant of the town's fading glory. On my last visit, I found his grave defiled with rotten eggs and trash, probably some kids trying to act tough. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a bad omen. That was 2 months ago. Last Wednesday, I was walking home from school with my friends, Tommy and John, the spring air cool and crisp, the setting sun casting long shadows across the empty streets. As we turned a corner, Tommy broke the silence. "Some guys are going to the water park this weekend." I stopped, the words hanging in the air like a bad memory. Day trips to the abandoned park were a rite of passage for seniors. A few daring souls would gather by the dried-up slides, drinking and swapping stories, but they always left before dusk. They knew better than to stay. "That's not smart," John muttered, echoing my thoughts. "We'll leave before sundown," Tommy reassured him. "You guys should come. It'll be fun." "I don't know," I replied, hesitant. I had always been careful about tempting fate, especially when it came to that place. "Think about it," Tommy said. "It's no big deal." "What day?" I asked, half hoping I had an excuse. "Saturday." "I can't. I'm visiting family." "Come on, man," Tommy pleaded, but I shook my head. We parted ways at the corner store. My mom had asked me to pick up some bread on the way home, so I went inside while the others continued down the street. The store's new owner had taken over recently, but the place still had its old charm, sort of. One wall was dedicated to town artifacts, remnants of our once thriving history, a copy of the town charter, a rusted gear from a factory, and, until recently, a silver-colored revolver. I noticed it was missing. "What happened to Icarus's revolver?" I asked the cashier. It had been a staple of the store for as long as I could remember. The cashier shrugged. New owner probably tossed it. "Seriously?" I replied, taken aback. That revolver was part of the town's lore, but I didn't push it. "Good riddance," another cashier chimed in. "The guy was an idiot. Everyone knows you can't beat the pool." I paid for the bread, but as I left the store, something gnawed at me. The revolver couldn't have just been thrown away. It felt wrong. Before I knew it, I found myself circling to the back of the store, toward the dumpster. The air reeked of rotting garbage, but something stronger pulled me to it. I pushed open the lid and started rummaging through the filth, my heart pounding for reasons I couldn't explain. After a few minutes, my fingers brushed against cold metal. My breath caught in my throat. I pulled it out. There it was, the silver revolver, still as heavy and ominous as it had looked on the wall. Its cylinder spun freely, revealing 2 empty chambers and 4 still loaded with bullets. I stuffed it into my backpack, a strange chill running down my spine. Something told me this wasn't just some forgotten piece of metal. It had been touched by the same darkness that clung to the weekend, while Tommy and John were at the water park with the others. I sat alone in my room, the revolver on my desk, its cold steel catching the dim light of my lamp. My parents were out, and the house felt too quiet. The air seemed thicker, harder to breathe, as if the very walls were watching me. I tried to distract myself, but I couldn't shake the growing unease. I thought about Icarus and how the revolver had ended up in the trash. Why now? Why had I found it? It was as if something had wanted me to take it. Around dusk, my phone buzzed. It was Tommy. "Hey man, you should have come. This place is crazy. We're about to leave." I exhaled, relieved. "Good. Don't stay late." "We won't, but, one of the guys dared John to jump into the pool." My heart stopped. "Tell him not to. Get out of there now." Tommy laughed nervously. "Yeah, man, I told him, but you know how John is. Anyway, we'll be fine. We're heading out." The call ended, but something in Tommy's voice made my skin crawl. I could feel the dread building in my chest. Something was wrong. The night wore on, each minute crawling by slower than the last. The revolver felt heavier, as if it was pulling me toward it, begging me to pick it up. The air in my room seemed to thicken with an unseen presence, a suffocating force pressing in on all sides. And then, at midnight, the phone rang again. "Tommy," I answered, but there was no response. Just static, faint at first, then growing louder. In the background I heard splashing, my heart raced. "Tommy, are you there?" A voice finally came through, but it wasn't Tommy's. It was a whisper, soft and cold. "Come to the pool." The line went dead. I grabbed the revolver and ran out into the night. The streets were deserted, the wind biting at my skin as I made my way toward the water park. The moon hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows over the crumbling ruins of the town. When I reached the park, it was deathly silent. The gates stood open, as if inviting me in. I hesitated, but something compelled me to step forward. The once vibrant water slides loomed like twisted skeletons in the dark, and the pool at the center of the park shimmered with an unnatural stillness. I approached the edge, my heart pounding in my chest. The water was black as ink, reflecting nothing. There was no sign of Tommy or John, but then a ripple. I froze, staring at the surface of the pool. Slowly, a figure emerged, rising from the water with agonizing slowness. It was John, his eyes wide and glassy, his skin pale and dripping with water that seemed to cling to him like shadows. But something was wrong. It wasn't John. His movements were too jerky, too unnatural, as if something else was controlling his body. His mouth hung open, and from it, I heard that same whisper from the phone. "Come to the pool." Before I could react, a hand shot out from the water, grabbing my ankle with a grip like iron. I screamed, stumbling backward, but the force pulled me closer to the edge. The water bubbled and churned, and I could see shapes moving beneath the surface. Dark, twisted shapes that writhed and slithered just out of sight. I raised the revolver, my hands shaking, and fired into the water. The sound echoed through the park, but it did nothing. The hand tightened its grip, dragging me closer to the edge. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, filling my mind with a cold, suffocating dread. "Come to the pool." With a final, desperate pull, I yanked my leg free and scrambled away from the edge, gasping for breath. The pool went still again, the surface calm and undisturbed, as if nothing had happened, but I knew it was still there, waiting. The town police searched the park the next day, but they found no trace of them. The only thing they discovered was the revolver, lying at the edge of the pool, its cylinder still warm from the shot I had fired. I left the town not long after that. The water park was torn down a few years later, but the pool was never drained. It's still there, buried beneath the concrete and rubble, waiting for the next fool to come too close. And sometimes, on quiet nights, I can still hear it whispering, "Come to the pool.